28th, 2017. This is MMA Junkie Radio's pre-show, the show before the show. I am Goz. Yeah. To my left is our MMA analyst for MMAjunkie.com. More precisely, MMA Junkie Radio, Dan Tom.
Woo!
In an undisclosed location, somewhere in Enterprise, Nevada. Gorgeous George, I think he's there. Woo! And back in New York, the world's greatest producer, Danny Elkers. Hello.
Hi.
Wow.
Wow.
Classic job. Wow, I didn't even do anything.
Wow. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to do woo.
That was your intro?
Yes.
Wow. So if your band made it big and you were on like Jimmy Fallon, they would go, and Danny Elkers, you just go, wow. That'd be like your first intro?
Absolutely, I would do that. If I got that famous where I could just be on Jimmy Fallon or any of the late night shows, I'm definitely using that to just have my catchphrase be wow.
Is there a lot of mic talk in your genre? Because in hardcore there was, but then there'd be times where like you'd try to fill time between a song and it would just fall dead.
Oh yeah. Oh no, we never fall dead. Like we usually just joke around or make fun of somebody makes fun of somebody else, or
you want to know the one
like
time
each other. We don't make fun of the crowd, but we make fun of each other. We don't really have any dead mic time.
The only one time it fell dead because this was MMA related was we were playing a festival at in Phoenix, and it was the same day Rampage fought Dan Henderson for the title, 2008, and I was like, "Who do you guys got? Henderson or Rampage?" Fuck, crickets, just punk rock kids, like nobody knew. I was like, "All right, okay, next song."
This one's a ballad.
Yep.
All right, guys, coming up in 10. Hey, George, you there? Nothing from George. All right, coming up. Say bye.
All right.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMA Junkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is going to be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goz. This is what we do and why we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yes!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communication stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMA Junkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMA Junkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goz.
From the fight capital of the world inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook and an undisclosed location in Enterprise, Nevada, it's the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me as always is the devious and dastardly Goz, our ace co-host, back east, handling all the producing duties as always. Goz, what's his name again?
Danny Elkers. Elkers.
Danny Otto, that's right. The latest addition to the MMA Junkie Radio team, of course, is Dan Tom. And special guest today, Brett Johns will be joining us in studio, two-time champion for Cage Warriors and Titan. What's up, guys?
What up?
Not mucho.
We are waiting on Brett Johns.
Yeah. He'll be there. He's fighting this weekend at Tough 26 Finale versus Joe Soto, a guest of ours last week. Very interested in that fight. Like I told Joe Soto, this is a great year for bantamweights, and the year's closing strong for the 135-pounders. So every fight matters, not just your performance, but anything leading up to and post-fight, where you can just engage that audience, man, the UFC audience, your audience, and just get you thrown into that mix. The champion probably will dabble into that super fight with Mighty Mouse, so that gives everyone else a chance to kind of catch up. And if a contender that's ahead of you lays an egg, doesn't have a good fight, then they may fall behind someone who's behind them and has a stellar finish. Would you guys not agree?
No, yeah, totally.
I completely agree.
What would you think of?
So,
what?
Very important fight coming up.
Yeah, but what about the other guys that have been barking from other divisions? You think that makes it scary for them?
What do you mean?
You know, other guys trying to get to Mighty Mouse. What's confusing about
Does
those
it
guys?
affect 135 pounders? I'm confused by the question. Sorry.
Wait, what did you say? I thought you were talking about Mighty Mouse.
No, I'm talking about the 135 pound division.
Oh, I
Brett
thought you were
Jones is
talking about.
bantamweight.
I thought you were talking about.
Yeah,
This fight with
My
Soto
bad.
means a lot. So what I said is the champion Dillashaw probably will dabble with the 25 pound champion. So that gives the rest of the division like 6 months to shake out to see who faces Dillashaw when he comes back.
Brain fart.
These two guys are real dark horses too, for what it's worth, as far as that division goes. I mean, especially the storylines you've got. You know, the regional prospect, obviously, with Brett Johns, and you know, with Joe Soto, he kind of got off to a rough start, taking the last-minute fights. You know, had back-to-back knockouts, but you know, you've heard him here. He's really collected himself, used that mature state of mind to come back, and he's quietly put together a winning streak against some tough guys. So it really is a underrated match flying under the radar there.
He gave a good explanation. I've always wondered that about taking short notice fights.
Yeah.
And I thought he broke it down pretty well.
Yeah, he did.
He did. He was on our show last week. If you guys want to go back into the archives, you can go back through our website, through iTunes, through Stitcher, through YouTube, through Facebook, even on the SiriusXM app. I believe the shows stay there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, for at least a week, right?
Yeah, I think we go back at least. It might be 6 days, but I mean, it's definitely. At
Yeah.
least
So
a week.
the Soto show should be there, and I'll give you an example of a move that was made recently. Marlon Moraes went out there and fought on the Norfolk show. He got himself a win. You know, it was a tough win, but it was a win. And immediately he started angling for that opening versus Rivera. He didn't get it, but he did get the Aljamain Sterling matchup. Now, just like we talked about Bisping, hey, it might be a gamble. These fights are about 3 weeks apart. I think this one might be 4 weeks, but, you know, right around the same time, arguably. And you know, it could blow up in his face. Now, he will get paid. He will get promoted. He will get a chance to perform. We just don't know what the result will be. Aljamain's no joke. But I like the fact that he took took control of his career and put that out there. Sometimes you can do that and pull it off, and it does a lot for you. Chris Lieben did that a few years ago. I believe it was Yoshihiro Akiyama, and I forget. I think the other one may have been the Aaron Simpson win. I can't remember, but he did 2 wins in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, and I think he took home 2 bonuses, 2 wins.
Or something like
He
that?
was a beast. I mean, it was a great run for him. Now, the difference being between Moraes and Bisping is Moraes is coming off a win. Bisping was coming off a loss, and Bisping was possibly coming off a slight concussion from the GSP fight. So a little bit different. So I don't encourage fighters to not go out and decompress and rest their bodies. You know, it's not always going to work, but sometimes it works. And right now, that division, bantamweight, is hot. And so Moraes is trying to take control of the positioning where he's at. If he can get past Aljamain Sterling, those 2 big wins to cap off 2017 will kind of erase a little bit of what happened with Sun Tzu, you know, earlier in the year when he made his debut coming off World Series of Fighting. So every case is different, but I think there are times when you want to strike like that.
If he would have won that fight, though, he would have been in an awesome position because you'd have 2 wins and you could be promoted as a former champion. I think that always helps. You see them kind of doing that a little bit more with Justin Gaethje now with the courtesy of PFL footage and stuff like that. Before they used to do that.
It's true.
But he would have been in a much better position.
Look at his teammate Eddie Alvarez. They gave him Cowboy Cerrone right off the top. You know, he was coming over as a Bellator champion, so in my opinion, he had high stock. He had a great first round. I still remember that collar tie he had on Cerrone. He was just smacking him, and then Cerrone came back to win the fight. But Alvarez went out, picked up a couple wins, and then boom, he was in position to fight RDA, and he won gold. I mean, that's pretty cool to be able to say you're the Bellator champion and the UFC champion, you know, before your career's over. I'm into that. Now, granted, he wasn't able to defend the UFC title, and I'll circle back on that later in the show when we have Tyron Woodley. But he still won the gold, man, at one point in the UFC, and I think every fighter wakes up, or has that dream, you know, when they start their careers to be a UFC champion, and he's been able to do it at Bellator. and the UFC. Well, Moraes can maybe take a page out of that book. He came up short against the Sun Sal, but going forward, he may have a chance to compete again because he was a world champion. He knows what that feels like, and he's got a teammate that probably can put his arm around him and say, "Hey, listen, don't get too depressed over this. Hold your head up high and come back."
George, as you're talking, I'm trying to think. Does anybody else have more scoreboard over other champions and other organizations than Eddie Alvarez? Because especially if you start diving into guys like Chandler who held the belt, you kind of start counting for twos in there as far as Bellator. He beat Gilbert Melendez, Shinya Aoki. As far as Alvarez, you start thinking about the champions that he's beaten. He didn't beat the Cage Warriors champ, obviously. But I mean, he's done pretty well for himself when you think about it.
Yeah, I think of Gilbert Melendez. The battles that he had in Pride.
Yeah.
His WEC Strike Force.
Yeah.
He came razor close to getting the UFC belt with Benson Henderson.
Dude, I have Gilbert Melendez fights on like Rumble and The Rock back in the day. That guy's fought everywhere.
Yeah, like Go said, he was a WEC lightweight champ and a Strike Force lightweight champ. Had he competed in any way for the Pride title, I think he would have had a good shot at it.
Yeah.
I really don't remember how that was shaken out. I think that's basically around the time Pride was dissolving.
Mm-hmm.
He was also the Shudo champion at 143 pounds. They don't do 145, but let's just call it the featherweight division. And like Go said, it went to a split decision against Benson Henderson. That would have been amazing for him to be able to say that. Now, Anthony Pettis was also a WEC champion and a UFC champion, and he had one UFC title defense. He was the final WEC champion, so we won't be able to brag that he had the title defense there. But I guess I'll bring it up now. I was going to save it for the Woodley spot, but I was perusing through a website that showed the different world champions in the different weight classes in the UFC, and it's funny how you start to separate yourself. A lot of guys and gals have won the UFC title, but a lot of them have never defended it, and then you get to that second title defense and third title defense, and then you really stand back and look at what Anderson, GSP, Mighty Mouse, and Bones have done. Mm-hmm. Holy cow. Yeah. I think that's 9, 10, 11, and 8, respectively, with those names that I just threw out there. Ronda, of course, came in at 6, Joanna at 5, depending on how you treat Ronda, because she was basically given the title. Aldo, sorry, I apologize, also had, I believe he got up to 8 title defenses. Now, he would have had more if he just would have fought more often. But those great fighters, they separate themselves, I think, a lot because of those reigns. These guys had almost, like, anywhere from 1,800 to 2,200 days as being the world champion. Imagine waking up every day being the best at what you do for 2,000 days. That's amazing.
Dude, that's what I'm telling you. It's coming down to that, the defenses. That's what's going to really separate people in the long run.
Yeah. And so Tyron Woodley has 3 title defenses. One of them was a draw, but he defended his title. He walked away with the title. So he's on 3. We'll see what's next for him with 4. Woodley will be on the show. Mark Henry will be on the show. But right now we're being joined by Brett Johns, UFC bantamweight, who is also a Cage Warriors bantamweight champion. A former Cage Warriors bantamweight champion and a former Titan FC bantamweight champion. What's up, Brett? How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a dream come true to be on this show. I've watched it for years and years and years, and to finally be here. I was having a bit of a moment to myself a few days ago that I was walking through Vegas, and I'm from a small village in South Wales. This don't happen to people like me, and it's a dream come true to be here, and I've watched the show for years, so thank you for having me on.
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure to have you here finally. Finally to hear the voice and see the face together and to have you here. Yeah, it's cool for us as well.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. Amazing.
Well, thank you for the kind words. For many years, Cage Warriors was featured on MMAjunkie, so we definitely saw you fight, do your thing over there, and we were well aware of Brett Johns before you even came to the UFC. Right now, the common fan is starting to marvel at Brett Johns fighting Joe Soto at the Tough 26 finale, but we've known about you for a while, brother.
Yeah, no, it's I've had the hard path, put it that way. I fought on many organisations, some of the best in the world. I fought on Titan FC, fought some UFC vets there. I fought the best up and comers in Europe, and like I said, I think I'm from a small village in South Wales. People haven't heard of where I come from, and I've had to do it the hard way. I was never through the Ultimate Fighter. I was never gonna knock. I won my first 5 fights. and still no call. And I had 7 fights, still no call. I even fought twice in one night for my first world title, still no call. And it was getting to the point then when I hit like 10-0, then I started thinking maybe the UFC's the next shout. But obviously we went to America, and I'm glad we went to America for the simple reason because of it's giving me experience for my fight this week now is in Vegas. It's giving me a lot of experience for that. I fought in Mobile, Alabama, and Kansas City, Missouri. So it's given me a lot of experience having them 12 professional fights outside the UFC, and now it's Vegas.
Yeah, that's the fight capital of the world. So that's pretty. That's kind of like a check mark for a lot of people. They want to fight in some of these different fight capitals throughout the world, like Tokyo, Japan, for example. A lot of us saw so many great shows through Pride, and of course Brazil, probably Rio de Janeiro, I think would be the city there that's thought of a lot back in the Gracie days when they were either fighting on the beaches or fighting on the streets, or the grandfather Helio doing his thing at Maracanizio, being outweighed by 50 pounds and fighting all sorts of different characters from all over the world. And Madison Square Garden's another one. I got to give them theirs. London, England, but right now I believe when you encompass boxing and mixed martial arts, and the fact that the UFC their home is Las Vegas, to us it's the fight capital of the world. It's as big as it gets.
Oh, definitely, hands down. This place is the fight capital of the world. This is the bright lights of Las Vegas. Of course, it's the fight capital of the world, and I think there's only ever been 2 Welshmen to ever fight in Las Vegas. One of them was Nathan Cleverly, who fought Bodo Jack on the McGregor and Mayweather card, and the other one was Joe Calzaghe, who's an idol of mine, a boxing idol of mine. And then there's me. There's young Brett Johns in the mix as well. So no, like I said, I'm absolutely honoured to fight in Vegas. And well, like I said, the next step for me is to follow the kind of same footsteps as Calzaghe. I want to fight in Vegas. I've done it. It doesn't matter where in Vegas for me. I'm in Vegas. That's the main thing. I'm there. The next one would be like Madison Square Garden, and hopefully this career takes off the way it's going. Then the Principality Stadium in Wales is like an 80,000 seat venue stadium.
Wow.
Maybe one day that will be, and it's got a roof over it. It's got a nice roof. It's got like one of them closing roofs over it. So the UFC, I'm sure, will be happy to go there then.
When it comes to sports in general in Wales, who are some of the biggest names? Like George and I are big Manchester United fans.
Yeah.
So Ryan Giggs is one of the names that we always think of.
Yeah, Giggsy's a big one. Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale, who plays for Real Madrid's a massive one.
They can't even walk the streets, right?
No. They absolutely they can't walk the streets in like places like I said. Gareth Bale plays in Spain, and you can't walk the streets in Spain without getting swamped by people. It's either good publicity or bad publicity. We get swamped by people, and I would say Gareth Bale is one of the biggest stars we got. And we've also got like a couple of good Olympians like Jade Jones, who's a gold medalist taekwondo. She's even mentioning coming to MMA. You know what I mean? And I think that'll be brilliant for the sport. And I'm just. There's 2 things I like to do. I want to do it for myself. I want to be the best that I can be. And second of all, I want to make this sport better in Wales. You know what I mean? It's still evolving. Going back November, there was no Welsh guy in the UFC, and then they had 2 on the spot. So I'm all for just making the sport a better name. I'm not a thug. And I'm not happy when people are representing the sport as thugs. This is a sport that needs to evolve. It's very similar. I feel like it's taken over boxing a little bit. You know what I mean? Where we're getting good characters in now, and that's what we need. The people like Sage Northcutt, the people like Paige Van Sant. These people we need to get in to make the sport look good. Of course we want to. We want the better it looks, the more people are going to watch, the more we get paid. As simple as that.
Mm-hmm. When I was growing up, mixed martial arts was really taking off right around the time I was in high school. This is 1996, But back then, that day where everybody kind of goes around the room, what do you want to do when you leave high school? If you said, I want to be a mixed martial artist, people would go, what? Something wrong with this guy, that sort of thing. What's the perception like in Wales right now? If somebody were to lift their hand and say that, what would people say?
It was the same when I was in school, but I was like, I hit like 16, 17, 18, and I was already training. I went to tell the teachers in school, I want to do this, and they're like, yeah, maybe you want to focus on something else.
Mm-hmm.
They just thought it was 2 thugs in a cage fighting. That's what it is. And my teachers look now, and I get tweets from my teachers in school now saying all the best, the next fight and all that. But it's changing up. The Americans, they've got it down to a T. They love the sport, and I just want the similar sort of feeling in America, because I've come out here, spoken to certain individuals and told them what I do. They're massive. The respect you get for it is unreal, and I'm trying to take that back home with me, trying to make the sport more recognizable where I'm from.
You know who I think did a lot for changing that perception? Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, she did, definitely, and she's a pioneer of the sport. My father absolutely loves her. My dad's my judo instructor. He's been my judo instructor since I was 4 years old. I'm 25 now, and Ronda Rousey was one of his favourites because he's traditional judo. BJJ doesn't come into it, boxing doesn't come into it. It's just judo, and he loved the way she was. And yeah, she was like that. She was a very disciplined Olympian athlete, and she come across into the sport, and that draws attraction. That draws Olympic fans in who have watched her, and I'm just all for making the sport more popular. That's all I'm here for,
By the way, you guys left out one famous person from Wales. I think we stick to sportsmen, but
Yeah,
we
we
just
just
got to
said
mention
sports.
Captain Zeta Jones at some point.
Yeah.
We've all thought about her. Lonely and quiet nights. So let's give a quick plug for her.
Yeah, definitely.
Brett John's
Think
joining
about
us
her on
here
busy
in
nights.
studio. Brett John's our guest here in studio. He'll be fighting at Top 26 finale on Friday. It takes place on Fox Sports 1, and of course tickets are available if you are coming to Vegas. More info on that later on. It's at the Park Theater right next to the Monte Carlo. Nice, cozy venue, loud venue. That's where they had the Hall of Fame ceremony for the UFC, and they've had previous tough finales there. I can't recommend it enough. It's a great concert venue. It's parked right in front of the Monte Carlo Hotel, and it's really, really cool. I love that spot. Now, again, Joe Soto, a former Bellator featherweight champion, now fighting at the bantamweight division. We were just saying, Brett, how the bantamweight division really is closing 2017 strong. There's a lot of matchups out there. Where do you feel like you fit in the division?
Yeah, it's I'm seeing a lot of big changes in the division. We've got Jimmy Rivera coming to the mix in the top 5. Obviously the title change between TJ and Cody. I was absolutely devastated when I heard that Dominic Cruz was out the fight with Rivera. That was a fight that I was really looking forward to. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Rivera's fighting Lineker next. Is that right?
I believe I saw that.
Yeah. So there's a big, massive bantamweight turn. You know what I mean? I like that. It's not stale. Sometimes you get to some divisions and it's like for example, DJ at flyweight. There's nobody can touch him unless TJ wants to go down. That's something I would love to see. But the bantamweight division is mixing it right up. And I said to the guys, by 2018, I want to be in that top 5 area. I want to be fighting them big names like Lineker. I want to be fighting Rivera. I want to be fighting Cruz. I want to be fighting TJ and Garvin. They're the guys I want to fight. They're the best in the world, of course. So I want to fight them. But first is Soto, and he's no joke. I've watched him for years and years. And I watched him on Bellator winning world titles. The guy has fought the who's who of MMA in the bantamweight division and featherweight division. You know what I mean? And he has not been taken lightly. Of course he's not, I'm confident, yes, but he's not been taken lightly. In my head, I have prepared for a 3-5 minute round war. If it finishes in 30 seconds, it's just a bonus. But in my head, I've completely and utterly physically prepared myself for 15 minutes. But more importantly, I have prepared myself for 15 minutes mentally. Because that's going to be a tough fight come Friday. And I know it. I'm prepared for that. You know what I mean? I've been in some bad spars the last couple of weeks just to make sure that I'm mentally prepared for that fight. And like I said, it's an honour to fight them. I'm in a lot of trash talk because he's one of them guys. I know I'm not going to get in his head. I know that. For the simple reason, this guy took a title fight on 30 hours notice against TJ Dillashaw. I'm not getting in this guy's head. But come fight night, I'm going to be in there with him. Then let's just do what we got to do. You know what I mean? Win, lose, or draw. There's no stone unturned for me. I have trained as hard as I can. If I go in there and I win, then I've won. If I go in there and I've lost, I've given 100% in camp. There's nothing else I can do. But I'm quietly confident.
John, let me ask you something. Kind of changing pace. You done martial arts, like you were saying, from judo from a young boy, and I was lucky enough to do martial arts from a young age. So whenever I see a fighter that does that, it really speaks out to me. Now, when you got signed, any fighter, doesn't matter their background, they deserve to be as happy and as emotional as they want when they get signed by the company like the UFC. But Brian Butler was speaking to us about a video that kind of went viral when you got signed. When I see that, is that an accumulation of just a lifetime spent doing martial arts? Is that what that is for you? Can you touch on that?
That's exactly what it was. It was. I'm not sure if people have seen the video, but it was one of them things where Brian Butler phoned me the night before, and he said about the potentially. He didn't say it was definite. Potentially, you might have a fight on UFC Belfast, November 2016. And I was like, okay, but I've heard that call before. I was prepared, believe it or not, 2 weeks before that, I was prepared to fight Ross Pearson at lightweight just to get in the UFC. Wow. I was going to do that. I put my name down. My coach basically lied about my weight. I was walking around about 155. My coach was saying, yeah, he's about 165. Yeah, we'll take that fight, But we were prepared to do that until Stevie Ray stepped in. and then they said, oh look, we got this fight instead on the same card. And I didn't get my hopes up, man. You know, it was one of them things. But like, I remember then it was my brother's birthday. He's 18, and back in the UK, you get to go out and you get a drink and socialise when you're 18. So I was up all night worrying about him. I was getting ready for like a little K1 contest I was going to do just from the sideline. And I heard a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking it was my brother. And I looked at my phone. And back in the UK, it's like 077818, whatever. And in American number, it's like 444-555. And I thought, well, I don't recognise that number. So I answered it. And it was Brian on the phone. And he said, look, get ready. You might be on UFC Belfast in a few weeks. So then he put the phone down. He said, you'll know by tomorrow evening. And I was like, oh, okay. So the whole day went by, and it was in my head repeating. And I was doing some no-gi. And my coach, Chris, called me off the mat. He said, come here quickly. So he came off the mat, and he had the Skype call with Brian Butler. And he didn't see you, and he said one sentence. He said, Brett, welcome to the UFC. And I burst into tears. I absolutely burst into tears because of, like you said, people haven't seen the journey. They've seen this journey, the 40-0 journey. They've seen that. They've seen the wins. They haven't seen the lows. I've gone through some major shoulder surgery. I've also had no money. I've had to sell my car for like £100, which is like $150, just to live an extra month. I lived in the gym. You know what I mean? People say they live in the gym. They think it's brilliant. Oh, I train so hard. I live in the gym. That's a lot of rubbish, man. Because if you live in the gym, you don't like it. It's a horrible place to live. And I lived there through the winter with no heaters in Wales, which is quite cold enough anyway. And I think it was just all them hard times, the injuries, the bad weight cuts, the this, the that, and it all come into that couple of seconds. Of course, I burst into tears. You know, it was a dream come true. And I said to my mother before leaving for my first fight, I said, I done it. You know, my ambition was to be in the UFC, was not to be a world champion. First of all, I give myself little goals and I reach them step by step. And I said, I just want to win my first fight. And I went out, I won my first fight, and then Scotland come around. And I was like, I just want to win my second fight. I won my second fight. This is the same story. You know, I know if I beat Soto, I'm going to be near the top 15 in the world, and that's just crazy to think about it. Where I've been and to now, yeah, of course it's crazy, and I'm an emotional guy anyway. I walk down them streets at night now when I'm just taking 5 minutes from running and stuff, and I just look around and think, wow, you know, you've done this, like, you know.
Wow, so you talked about those mini goals. What about, are there any ones within those goals? In other words, like, I want to win the fight, but this time I want to submit him, or this time I want to knock him out. Do you have those as well?
Of course, yeah. You know, I've you know, especially this fight, I've gone through the last, I think it's like 3 fights decisions. You know, and a lot of my records are built up through decisions. That's where they're built up from, and of course I'm trying to finish the fight. You know, I had Morales in the 3rd round. I had him in a head and arm choke, and it was just I was trying to hold and squeeze, but it wasn't right. It wasn't the right angle. So I am trying to finish the fights, and yeah, of course I'd love a good knock. I'd love a knockout now soon. You know, I think I was like 7-0. It was like 7 fights ago before I had my last knockout, and it'd be nice to get another one on the record. But like I said, people remember winners. That's what they remember, and come Friday night, it's going to be the same thing. You know, I'm going in there to win, and you know, Joe. Like I said, I'm very respectful of Joe. You know what I mean? He's been in it with the best, and it's an honour to fight him. But you know, this is my story, not his, and I want to keep this story going.
What do you think will be going through your mind as you're going through that curtain in Las Vegas, fighting in Las Vegas? What do you think are the thoughts that are going to be going through your head?
Oh, it's going to be absolutely terrifying. You know, I cry before every time I walk out. You know, it's terrifying. But my first experience of that for the UFC was one that I was like, wow, the reality hit. I'd never fought in front of a stadium that big. I never actually went to watch a UFC until that point. So my first UFC event I was fighting in the UFC. You know, I was going to the cage, you know. And as I'm walking out, you know, they say about the curtains, coming through the curtains, Brett, you're on in 5, and then they drag me through the curtains. My head's looking on the floor, I look up, and who is the first person I see? After a week after his 2 title win, Conor McGregor, standing in front of me, about 2 meters away, looking at me and nodding. I thought, wow, this is for real now. This is where it's all happening. And like, obviously, the nervous feeling I had there was incredible. You know, Scotland wasn't like that. Although Scotland was more of a crowd, it wasn't like that. But and I'm hoping Vegas won't be as bad as that, because after the fight, I don't remember my first fight. I do not remember a thing after the fight. Just complete and utter blackout. You know. Mm-hmm. But no, I'm fingers crossed. It's going to be great. You know, I'm looking forward. I haven't been in the Park Theatre, but I guess you guys said it's quite noisy. As long as the crowd are making noise, I don't care if they boo or cheer. As long as they're making noise, it's all good, isn't it?
What
Yep.
about
Great story, man.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. When you
Can you imagine, like, hey, you ever been to a UFC? Oh yeah, I actually fought in one.
I remember my first time.
when you finally go through the curtain and you go through and you get into the cage and all that, I'm sure there is like a level of anxiety, like you said, you cry in the back and all that. If the UFC ever gave you the option to just be that first fight of the night every time, would you take that? I've heard a few fighters say, I'd rather just get it over with.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I would be that guy. Yeah, you know, I was saying like for me now, I'm trying to fight for like that main card, that like main event, co-main event status. But like the UFC do like a green room backstage where you get your cake and stuff, and the main card don't get much time with that. So I'm happy with being on the undercard, eat some more cake, like you know.
No.
Yeah.
I gotta jump in there. Brett, it's easy to say right now. Forget about the cake. You got hustled on that car deal for 150 pounds. So you got to get that back, my man.
Yeah.
If you're 14-0. That means you're an ass kicker. You're one of the best out there. You got to start getting up to the co-main, the main, because you said you want to be top 15. When you get there, they're going to put you in those high spots. So you got to start learning how to deal with those nerves. And then eventually you'll start making some big money, and then you'll make up for that car that you lost for 150.
Yeah,
pounds.
no, definitely.
Yeah, you need some negotiating skills there, my man. I don't know what kind of a car it was, but you could have gotten more than that, right?
No, it's all. It was a French car for starters, so we got no chance there. But no, like I said, you know, yeah, it's going to be a dream come true. Like I said about my many little dreams I have, fighting on the main card, co-main event, main event, fighting for the belt. They're all the little mini dreams I have, but I take them step by step. And like I said, it's going to be a good fight. But first is Soto. I beat Soto. That's the first steps of getting that ball rolling towards them top fives, them co-main events, them main events, and then I want to bring it back to Wales. Just for, you know, I want one fight in Wales with the UFC. If I bring that home alone, that would be the ultimate dream for me. Never mind the main event slots, the co-main event slots, the main card slot. If I bring a card back to Wales, that would be amazing. To add on top of that, to fight for a belt in Wales. Can't get better than that, you know. We have the stadium, you know, and unfortunately Ireland doesn't have it yet, but we have that stadium there. We just need that superstar to come along now and represent the country, and I think it's me. I genuinely do. I think I can do that, and you know. But first we got to go through Soto, so I'm not looking past him. And Friday night, you know, I not only beat him, but I want to put a stamp on, you know, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun one to watch, and I've always got that 50k in the back of my mind as well.
I think you have to get going to the UFC PI, so we'll close right now. One, I wanted to make this point. Remind me that we need to teach Brian Butler about time zones. How inconsiderate. He calls Brett at 3 a.m. 5 more hours and just called him at 8 a.m. But the other thing is, Brett, every guest that's in our show, we ask them to tell a street fight story. Now, I know you're not into the thug stuff, but I think at some point on the mean streets of Cardiff or somewhere, perhaps something went down. Can you share a good story with us?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, no, it's not a bad one either. The mean streets of. I'm from a place called Pont de Lice. That's the name of the place I live, and it's in Swansea.
Stuff go down there?
Yeah, it's like Stockton. but it's colder, a lot colder. I remember one time I was young. I wasn't starting MMA back then, believe it or not. I was still doing my judo, and there's a couple of thugs by me, you know what I mean. And I remember walking down the street. And I mentioned I was doing judo. I'd done judo for like 16 years before this point. And this guy just randomly, about the same age as me, jumped on my back and rear naked choked me. Like, tried to put me unconscious in the middle of a street, like just for a joke, really. And I'm not a big fan of that. I've never gone to sleep in my life, and I never plan to, you know what I mean? Hopefully it doesn't happen this Friday either. And I remember just getting really annoyed, so I pushed him. And I remember him pushing me into a corner of a wall and beating lumps of me. There was about 5 or 6 punches he beat into me, and they all landed flush on the face.
Oh wow!
And I remember being so embarrassed that I offered him out by the it was like a monument. It was a monument, a soldier monument from the First World War, and I said, right, we'll fight down there. Not very respectful, I know, but managed to, like, obviously we started fighting. I think he fancied his chances because he landed a few punches on me, but I managed to switch the situation on that. I held him in a rear naked choke, and I was choking him, and I let him up. I managed to catch him with a shot and put him down. And I remember looking up after it all finished. Like, the guy didn't want to carry on after that, and I looked at the sign and realised that my great grandfather was on that monument that fought in the World War One. I was like, oh, okay, I shouldn't have done. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that there, you know. But no, like I said, when
he was probably proud of you.
Maybe, yeah, but No,
That's a bully story. You defended yourself against the bully.
I
You
yeah,
didn't start it,
it's one of the
right?
things I detest, but I think everybody does, but I hate bullies. I'm not a big fan of bullies, and Does
that go for Gray Maynard and Ricardo Lamas too, or real bullies?
no, the real bullies, not them bullies. No,
Okay.
they're hard bullies. They are.
That's a good story.
That's a great
That
story.
is.
I got plenty of them, but you guys haven't got time. I got plenty of stories. You know what I mean?
We got time. You don't have time. I heard you have to leave to the UFC PI. You have an appointment
I
at
know.
11, right?
I think so. Yeah. With
Alright,
with Bobby for a massage of my legs because I'm running to try and get this weight off. So.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Next time you're in town,
Oh.
or if you extend your visit, please come back, co-host the whole episode with us, and you can share more of those stories with us. But in
Definitely.
the meantime, good luck on Friday. I hope you have a safe weight cut. I hope you have a great fight versus Joe Soto. I think both of you guys are quality bantamweights. And like I said, the bantamweight division is on fire right now to close out 2017. There's some great matchups. We mentioned Lineker versus Rivera. Marias has Sterling. We just had the title fight, so that division is blowing up. Brett Johns, you want to thank anybody before we let you go? Shout out to a sponsor, your fans, plug the social media. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just I want to thank just everybody who's helped me to get to this point. You know, I want to thank C&T Electrical, Wise Property Investments, Tanabe, Total Fitness, The Bridge, and Watches of Wales. I want to thank my teams, obviously back home, and thanks to you guys for having me on the show. You know, like I said at the start of the show, this is a dream come true, MMA Junkie Radio, and I finally done it. You know, the boy from Pond of the Lice has done good. He's done good.
Thank you, sir. Very kind of you. And folks, we are going to take a break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. Please go out there and give Brett a follow. Brett on Twitter is 36Johns, at 36Johns. Again, he faces Joe Soto on Friday. Stay close, folks. We'll be right back.
These guys have none of that. You listen to them, so you're no better. I am awesome, though. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
SiriusXM is giving you the chance to win a trip or two to Los Angeles for a private holiday concert with the Brian Setzer Orchestra at the Troubadour. Our winner will get to meet Brian Setzer and take home one of his signature guitars. For official rules and to enter, go to SiriusXM.com/Setzer Christmas Rocks. Do that before December 8th, however, and it's only open to those with SiriusXM before December 8th. No purchase is necessary. All right, that was Brett Johns, UFC bantamweight, who was in our studio. We kept it short, but it was great to have him on, and I want to thank Brian Butler for coordinating that. That's one of the 7 fighters that Brian Butler manages that's fighting this week. So busy week for him. He's out in Detroit to support Felice Herrig, Max Holloway, Paul Felder. I believe there's one other fighter that I might be leaving out that's on that card. Do you guys remember? He mentioned them deeper down in the Fight Pass, I believe.
Sabah Homasi is.
Yeah.
He's facing. Oh boy, now that's
that was on the tip of your tongue,
you
right,
could have
guys?
just walked away from that one, Dan. You would have been a superstar.
I know I would have been. Sabah Homasi's facing Razak Al Hassan.
Okay. That you know what? That almost to me sounds like a street fight that's just going to happen before everyone enters the arena. I have to get more familiar with some of these names. Shout out to Knuckled Up 101 in the live chat, the YouTube live chat, as well as the Human Moron. Both of them,
That's my favorite.
Hanging in there every day. West Side is in there. So is Juan Ramirez supporting his boy Joe Soto, both from the 559. Also, Antonius Pius. He says he wants to see Ali Bagautinov fight. Bagautinov is either part of ACB or FNG out in Russia. He's pretty active. I think he's had a couple fights this year. He's still, if I'm not mistaken, a ranked flyweight. But, you know, if he either decisions or loses, he's going to fall out quickly because the high status that he had gained when he was fighting in the UFC, you know, you tend to keep that when you're still fighting in the UFC, and when you're not, those losses can hurt. So I'll keep an eye on Ali Bagautinov, see when his next fight is. Don Piccolo also in the live chat, the YouTube live chat. Thank you always for hanging out. One more, Miguel
AKAs,
Hernandez.
George.
Excuse me?
Don Piccolo's got a couple AKAs. You gotta throw them out.
Yeah, he's also Doncho, right?
He's also Doncho. He's also Don Chow.
Don Chow.
Chow.
Remember when Danny did that?
Yep. Meet the Chow.
Don Chow.
I stand by it. When I met him, I called him that too.
Don Chow's on line 1. Don Chow.
Shout out to Miguel Hernandez, also in the chat room, as well as Cassidy Erickson chiming in right now. All right. You know, I was asked right now, a good question. Somebody said, why don't you ever Skype in? The reason is because, as you all know, if you've listened to the show for a while, look, our internet through Cox Cable in Las Vegas, it's pretty potent. But the fucking stream still, or whatever it's called, the bandwidth, still just tends to go out. And this codec, I think, is a little bit more consistent, and that's why I've done it. However, this is the last day with the codec machine. I will be sending it back to New York today. And I want to thank SiriusXM for allowing me to broadcast, you know, using the codec. Same goes for our bosses for giving me that flexibility. I really had no other choice. Just getting to the studio yesterday was probably an hour longer than normal. You know, the whole process of getting ready, everything's just a little slower. And I got a lot for that time and just get used to it because I'll have no choice going forward. But the Skype is something that we plan to use a little bit more in 2018, and it'll just be for, you know, shorter spots. 10 minutes, 15 minutes when we have a guest on and they're in an area where they have, you know, good service. Otherwise, if it fades in and out, that's the problem with being a radio show and a podcast. We have a responsibility to live up to with Sirius. If at any point we're buffering or we're just not working out, Danny will, boom, hit the button and you hear the best of or hear something else, but we just can't have that on radio. On a podcast, you can always go back and edit and glue it and figure it out, but not when. But great question. All right, Tyron Woodley will join us in the second hour about the 30. The right guy. He also said, and then of course with just want to do is cash big checks. So if Conor McGregor ever called him out, you know he'd raise his arm and say, I'm in. And then the other name, of course, possibly could be Colby Covington, because even though there's a big dislike towards Colby Covington, he's got an 8-1 record, and Colby Covington has stirred the pot. And when you stir the pot, it sometimes can translate into a bigger pay-per-view buy, so that could turn out to be a business decision for Tyron Woodley. But those questions are better left for the champion to ask, for us to ask him and for him to answer himself. Mark Henry, also the head coach for many big-name fighters out there, like Marlon Moraes, Frankie Edgar, and Eddie Alvarez. He'll join us in the second hour, so it should be good times. Now is a good time if you want to get in and call us, 866-522-2846. We'll go all the way to the end of this first hour and start off the second hour wide open if you want to call in and discuss UFC 218 or anything else that's on your mind. Now, speaking of UFC 218, it goes down on Saturday. Myself and Goes, we will be out at Joint Base Langley Eustis hosting a UFC 218 viewing party. So we look forward to that. We are cutting this week short, and we will have a show tomorrow. And let me tell you the new start time for the show. We're going to do the show a little bit early, and that's an 11:30 a.m. start time, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. So for those of you that catch the show live, that's your new start time. But everything will be uploaded and ready to go, just like normal for anyone that catches us on the SiriusXM app, on the SiriusXM replays, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever. Guys, have you caught up with have you seen the countdown? What'd you think? And have you guys started catching any embeddeds?
No, I only caught the
Anything
first
jumping out at you?
embedded, but I haven't caught the countdown.
I
I
always,
did like the promo for it though.
I always wait, especially now more so with obviously with the job. I take more so Joey O's advice, but yeah, I usually wait, and that's like my dessert at the end of the week after my analysis is done. Then I can go and listen to certain shows, watch certain shows, I should say, possibly like countdown shows, stuff like that, stuff that might sway me off of my process. I'll save toward the end of the week.
Have you?
There you go. That's not a bad idea, Dan, because they can be influential. All you hear is the best from their coaches and how ready they are and how 110% ready they are. And then, of course, we find out later on that that's not the case. And it's better not to get swayed, especially in the business you are in, of breaking down the fights and also dabbling. Excuse me?
Have you caught any of them?
I caught the countdown. I watched that, from start to finish, and I thought it was really, really good. That's where I started off with asking Brian Butler, because Max Holloway had mentioned that he wanted nothing to do with the selection process. Once he heard Edgar was out, that basically it was Butler's job to get him, that gig, and it didn't matter who. And if you caught the Butler interview yesterday, folks, he was even willing to take Ferguson, Cowboy, or anybody else in the lightweight division, but he wanted to fight. He had a laser focus, and I don't blame him. As much as you want the title defense, you also want to get paid. You also want a reward for all those sacrifices you make, eating wise. And Max likes to throw down. What's his record go for churros at Disneyland? Isn't it in the 30s?
No, fuck. No,
17 or something, like
17
It's like
or something.
14, but then he also had a churro cake, which is at least like 5 of them.
Yeah.
And he had something else. How do you eat that?
So
How do
that
you just
guy,
not get
he
sick
likes
from
to
that?
eat.
And you getting
I
thrown
don't
on
know,
roller
man.
coasters?
See,
And those cupcakes, he's a beast. You know what I mean? So he sacrifices a lot, and he wants to fight. We got Aldo, Jose Aldo up next. Andre Pederners, I looked on Junkie, and there was a story there. He's bringing back the leg kicks.
Mm-hmm.
When we were doing our little mini breakdown yesterday that you all will see on Friday when we do the media predictions, I mentioned the leg kicks. I didn't see them in Rio de Janeiro, and I like to go more off of tangible evidence other than what people are telling me. Why wouldn't he have thrown them in the first fight? I mean, they're a fucking big weapon for the guy. You know what I mean? Especially in the way that Holloway will stand on that lead leg. He kind of leaves it out there. I mean, those guys that have those long, lanky frames, I mean, there's more of that leg to target. Whether it's the thigh or, as we've seen as of late, that calf. You attack the calf. Either way, it's pretty debilitating.
Yeah, I think if you made like a top 10 of strikes that people fear, you gotta have Jose Aldo's leg kick in there, right? I mean, it's one of the most feared weapons that fighters have.
It is a weird question point, and I definitely made it a point in this week's breakdown, which, by the way, may be coming out as we speak as far as the main event. I know we're trying something different this week for those who follow the analysis and breakdowns. We're going to be sprinkling them in a little earlier, but Yeah, if you go to MMAjunkie.com, my breakdown on this fight should come out. And in it, I do talk about the leg kicks because you're right, guys. That is the talking point for this fight. And it's weird because, Aldo, not just the Holloway fight, right? He kind of stopped throwing him as much in the last couple of years. Now you could look at it, well, he was facing Lamas, he was facing Mendez, wrestling threats, right? So it kind of makes sense he doesn't want to get him caught to be taken down, but... Max Holloway didn't present the double leg threat, right? He's a very diverse fighter, but that's one thing he doesn't present. So it really makes an interesting question when you start, dissecting the sample size. Because I'm with George. I like more going on tangible, actual in-cage evidence. But even that can be misleading for this one when you look at that aspect.
Yeah, and as was mentioned after the fight, post UFC 212. What was it, guys?
212 they fought.
Post UFC 12, he had concerns about in the past how he's broken his foot. Well, why wouldn't he have him in this one? Is there more of an urgency in this one? Is it because he's getting older, or now he gives a fuck? Last camp he didn't. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas Max Holloway just seems to me to be someone who's got a laser focus. Everything's dialed in. He's young. He's durable. He's hungry. But it's tough. It's tough when a fight's presented and you don't take Aldo. You almost feel like a fool. He's one of the all-time greats for crying out loud. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have a little bit of time to preview hour number 2, which I mentioned earlier. We have a world champion headed our way. And at the same time, I'd like the guys, and I'll do so as well, talk a little bit about Ben Askren. He had his retirement fight in Singapore this past weekend, and maybe a couple quick thoughts on his career and maybe where he goes down as far as all-time great at welterweight, all-time great outside the UFC, what have you. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Rush 93. Stay close.
Do what they say, and your life will be a lot better. Here are Gorgeous and Goes.
Help SiriusXM in the fight to end hunger. Support Why Hunger's annual Hungerthon by visiting SiriusXM.com/Hungerthon. To bid on items like the opportunity to spend a day at an NFL training camp with SiriusXM NFL Radio. You can also make a donation and receive a free gift like a Bruce Springsteen Land of Hope and Dreams t-shirt and more. All right, Danny, well, probably not Danny. I don't even know if Danny knows who Ben Askren is, but guys, let's save that for the beginning of the second hour because we're right up against the clock, and we got to give the former one and Bellator champion a little bit of respect. He finished his career at 18-0 this past weekend by disposing of Shinya Aoki via TKO strikes in the first round, so it was quick work for him. But right away, he was already teasing wanting to fight GSP at some point. So I don't even know if it was a retirement or not. I had to work on the rankings this week, and I pitched it to the editorial and said, look, he said retirement. We're pulling him. And this is, who we submit to take his place. But at the same time, I'm not so sure this guy's done. Regardless, we'll talk about more about that, when we come back. And don't forget, we also have Tyron Woodley, UFC welterweight champion. He'll be on in about 20 minutes. And he'll be followed by Mark Henry, one of the best head coaches in the game. Stay close. It's the MMA Junkie Radio Show on SiriusXM, Rush 93. here we go, folks. It's the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show. Goes, that story you started during the commercial, is that one you'd like to finish, or
Yeah, it goes.
or we're gonna save it for the next commercial?
I mean, you want the whole story, or yeah? Okay.
Share what Junkie Nation goes when you didn't poo for 30 days.
I didn't poo for 30 days 2 times when I was a kid. The second one wasn't 30
Can't
days,
believe I
though. It was
lived
more
with
like
you.
20. But what happened was I had just gone. For one, all right. So how the conversation started was
No, just leave the cousin out of this.
No,
It's
not
you,
that
it's
part.
you at this point.
Not that part. I didn't poo until like about 5 years ago. I used to go like once every 2 days or something like that, and everybody would tell me, "Dude, I go like 3 times a day." I was like, "Really?" I just didn't, and I just never did it, right? And so when I was younger, it was even worse. And I remember one time, I'd have to like remind myself to poo. And one time I went about a week, and I was like, "Oh man, I know if I poo now, it's gonna really hurt." So
How do you remind yourself? Do you leave like a little note on the nightstand that just says POO, or do you?
I just
Does an
I didn't
alarm
have
show
that
up on your iPhone and it says POO? I mean, how do you remind yourself to poo?
Well, I mean, I just didn't have the feeling that, oh, I gotta poo. I would never get it. I'd have to like go and to the restroom and poo. And so anyway, I went about a week, and after that, I knew it was gonna really hurt, so I got scared. So then I held off for another week, and then after after like halfway through the second week, it got to where if I stood up, I would have to go. So what I would do is when I get up in the morning, I would run to the couch and sit down. As long as I was sitting down, I was okay. And I spent like the next 5 days just watching Nickelodeon on TV, and I wouldn't get up. If I got up, I'd have to run to wherever I need to go to sit down again. So anyways, long story short, my mom realized, all right, what is your problem? You're not doing anything. And I told her, I'm afraid to poop because I know we're going on a month. This is going to be bad. So she takes me to the doctor, and the doctor pulls up an x-ray, and he's like, dude, he's like, if he doesn't poo now, the poo is going to shoot through his stomach. It's going to puncture his stomach. And so then they asked me to leave the room. That part scared me. So then my mom's like, okay, you got to go home. So I was like, go home? Like, I thought I was going to have surgery or something.
Right.
So remember that doctor's office is real close to the house, George, at Adams. So we went home. And so she pulls out this thing, right, that looks like a smushed ping pong ball. And she's like, lay on the bed. And I'm like, oh, my God, what is this? And so what is it called, a suppository?
Yeah.
All right, so she puts that up my ass. And I'm like, oh, man, what is this? And, like, literally within 5 minutes, I ran into the restroom, and I couldn't. There's nothing I could do. So I shit, and it was pretty bad. But the second time was worse, because that time I didn't tell my mom, and I was afraid to tell her that I had done it again. So this time I actually went in to poop, and wow, dude, it was like a baby's arm came out. Dude.
Oh my!
It hurt so bad that from that day on, then I like trained myself to try and poop at least every day.
It's like a tail that came out.
Worst, dude. It was horrible. But the worst one ever was just a regular poo, but I sneezed as it was coming out. That is the worst pain
Like
I've
spaghetti?
ever had in my life. That one and the donkey. Remember the donkey that stepped on my foot, George, at the car dealership? Those are back to back the two worst.
A horse?
No, it was, yeah. It was like a pony, right?
It's a jackass.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the two worst pains I've ever had in my life.
I love that this song is probably time appropriate for when the story happened, and the fact that Seal said my power, my pleasure, my pain when Goes talked about the suppository was golden for me. Sorry. That was great. That was a great story.
I mean, at least that one mushed it up. The one that I had to do on my own was the worst.
Damn, man.
So I know that it's possible.
Would you like me to still remind you any, or are you past all that?
No, I'm past all that. Of that whole stretch, though, the worst one. Remember when Mom and Dad used to take us to Bob's Big Boy for breakfast, like every Sunday, brunch or whatever? And that was in the midst of one of my things. So I remember I had to, from the car, I had to sprint into the lobby, sit down. And my dad was like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid? And then when they go, all right, your table's here, I had to kind of pretend like I was tying my shoelaces, see where they're sitting, and then run to the table, sit down. It was horrible.
I can imagine Goes walking into the Bob's Big Boy and him just so delusional that he sees the Bob's Big Boy just turn to him as he walks in and gives him a wink and a nod, like, yeah, you know what's going down.
Because of buffet lines, I had to tell my mom what I wanted. I'm not feeling good. This dude was a mess.
Dear God.
All right.
All right. We'll be joined in about 15 minutes by Tyron Woodley, UFC welterweight. In fact, I'll send him a quick text here while the guys chat up Ben Askren. I know we mentioned it earlier or yesterday, but do you guys want to? Do you want to see a champion like Ben Askren, kind of, very proudly, just went on about his business? And a lot of people still herald him as one of the great welterweights, even though he's never stepped foot in the octagon. Would you like him to just keep it that way, guys? He's had a great career in wrestling, and apparently he can make a lot of money and do great with the wrestling camps and possibly coaching someday. Who knows? And just sail off into the sunset. Or are you guys warm to the fact that, man, he's teasing what it would be like to fight GSP? Even though GSP's not the champion right now, he's regarded as the all-time great welterweight, in our sport. We know he won't fight Tyron Woodley because those guys are very tight teammates at Missouri. What would you like to see from Ben Askren, and what do you think of his career overall?
I think if he's got it in it, I wouldn't mind watching him fight a guy like GSP. I'd like to sit down and just ask him, like, did you make good money in this stretch? I know one championship probably gave him a nice contract, but is it really good money? Because I would want a guy like that to get paid. And I know he's not going to make those big bucks unless he goes to the UFC and has one of these types of fights. But regardless, I mean, what is he at, like 18 wins or something like that? That's really hard to do at any level in mixed martial arts, to just put a streak together like that. And he's got some pretty decent names on his list, so the only problem is, like we were talking about yesterday, the guy I brought up, Rich Franklin, he had a great career, but who remembers Rich Franklin? Like, not that many people, and it's nothing against him. It's just the way our sport is, and it kind of sucks that a guy that did something like that. You know who it reminds me of? Is it Joe Calzaghe in boxing? Right? He was undefeated too, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But how often do we bring that name up when we talk about the greatest of all time or anything? And he did something pretty remarkable, right? So I want him to remember. I want guys to be remembered, and it just depends on Ben and how he wants to be remembered.
Yeah, I obviously made my a terrible Jim Abbott reference earlier this week as far as like the guys we remember for individual sections and how they rank in our memory banks as time goes on. I could probably continue with the sports metaphors and maybe do a Harlem Globetrotters, one with Ben Askren as far as his career. But what George was saying made me think that, what is it that kind of makes us wanting more or being happy with the decisions that Ben Askren wanted? For example, I've criticized for, fighters, maybe, doing political moves to, not necessarily pick and choose, but pick and choose, for lack of a better word, not in a negative. Whereas Ben Askren, you could say maybe he picked and choose, but didn't pick and choose to get the Conor McGregor type fights. He picked and choose to be comfortable because he wanted to fight here for this amount of money, because he had these ideals and he was very comfortable with that. And it's hard not to respect the guy for that, first of all, right? We're not in his shoes. But I guess what I'm saying is, if we made this metaphor into food, guys, something we all can relate to, and they said, you can take a pill, goes in George, you can take a pill, you're not going to have any diseases, you're going to have you're probably going to have a healthier walking around weight, you're going to look better, but this pill is going to replace your meal. It's going to supply with all your nutrients. You're never going to be hungry. You're never going to feel hunger pains. You're going to live longer. You're going to be happier, all these things. Or you can take the time to go sit down, or cook your meals for the rest of your life like a normal person. Enjoy all the bad, shit stories and stomach problems that come along with it. But you get to enjoy the food, and that's what I think about when I compare these guys like the Randy Couture, BJ Penn prototypes who went around enjoying food in every weight class, so to speak. Whereas the guys, whether it's an Askren or whether it's a McGregor or St. Pierre, that they're positioning themselves. It's almost like two different styles of your career, right?
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't take the pill, that's for sure.
I wouldn't take the pill either. I would enjoy my meals and whatever problems came with
it. He flew out to meet with with Dana White. Dana said that was on Ben. They didn't ask him to fly out. He flew out. He said they just didn't click. But Dana hasn't clicked with a lot of guys in the past, and somehow they were able to get it done. I think, his style of fight was just similar to Damian Maia, where it takes an 8-fight win streak to get a whiff at a title shot. But you still marvel and you still shake Damian Maia's hand and go, man, you're a fucking badass. Because no matter what, he starts adding those skins to his wall, and that's what Damian Maia did. And there was not much you could do other than give him the title shot. It's just a certain style. But we have to have those styles, guys. Yeah. We really do. John Fitch, for many years, he was same thing. He was a grinder in the UFC. And finally, when things didn't go right, yeah, the UFC, they didn't give him as long as a leash as they gave other guys that go out there and just brawl. But what John Fitch did do, and a lot of people don't remember this, is he made the other welterweights better. When he beat Thiago Alves and grinded him, guess what Thiago Alves did on Monday when he was back at American Top Team? Where are the wrestlers? Start taking me down. If I have to wear a singlet, I'll do it. If I have to go to an all wrestling, campus or something like that, and just immerse myself, I'm going to do it. I got to stop this guy. It made him a better mixed martial artist. I think Ben Askren would have been good for the UFC.
Yeah.
Maybe it was because we had just gotten out of the GSP era, and GSP had a lot of decisions, and Dana wanted to go in another direction. I don't know, but Ben Askren belonged in the UFC. He should have fought there. He didn't do it. If he still has any competitive juices left in him, I'd love to see him come to the UFC and fight. But I think one major roadblock is one of his best buddies is the world champion. So I think his time may be done. And if it is done, then let's learn from the people that were able to walk away at the right time. And I think the right people, the people that matter, and that's the hardcore fans, your colleagues, fellow fighters, the media, you'll have their respect. And I think that's what matters in this sport.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up too, George. How much of it was the time that he tried to get on, right? That was the time where they cut John Fitch, or they cut Yushin Okami. Even in the flyweights, you guys talk about Ulysses Gomez. I mean, this was a time where they still had the power, but there were also questionable cuts and questionable moves in the market, and that's kind of when that key time when Ben Askren was in talks. So you got to wonder. I mean, if he came a little earlier, a little later, would he have been in the UFC?
Maybe he just said that one thing, right? Because George is right. Dana has been able to get over some things with certain fighters, but maybe he just said that one thing that there was no coming back from.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. In the meantime, I guess he is considered a retired fighter, and it's still a great career, man. What he did in MMA to be undefeated regardless.
Oh, yeah.
It's still great. He still beat some tough guys out there. Guys that are ranked right now, like Douglas Lima and Andrei Korshkov. UFC veterans from the past, like Jay Haran. They fought and competed against Ben Askren, and it just wasn't their night. As well as being a two-time champion, Division I two-time champion in wrestling, a four-time All-American, the winner of the Hodge Trophy. That's pretty amazing. An Olympian in 2008. That's quite a combat sports resume overall. Mm-hmm. Tyron Woodley will join us, and God, I don't know how much time we'll have with the guy, guys, and
Why?
Dan,
Mm-hmm.
but well, at some point we got to have Mark Henry on the show.
Oh.
But I got a lot of stuff to ask him. I mean, Tyron Woodley, I know there's a lot of people that just will never be fans. But he is kind of fun to follow. I mean, he's everywhere. He's on the Fox desk, whether he's, on location as a host or just back in LA reacting pre and post fight. He's got, his own podcast. He's working with TMZ Sports, and he's very active on Twitter. I mean, he will address anybody. There's people that call him the N-word, and he still fires back. And he doesn't even fire back with venom. He'll just say whatever. He knows how to dismiss those people. And then, of course, whether it's a Covington fan or a Lawler fan or other fighters, he's there. He's active. I mean, I don't understand why he's not a little bit more well-liked. And I think it's because he's maybe perhaps offered up some excuses when maybe he had fights that weren't the most exciting. But what sucks is when he did have those exciting finishes, I don't know that he got the proper kudos. Man, the dude is out there, and I'm going to tell him this when we do the interview, but I feel like he's on a pier, and he's just got a lot of fishing lines, and a lot of things are happening, in his career, and like who can be next, in what division, when, and for him, I don't know if it's exciting or stressful. To me, I think he'll answer that it's more exciting, but UFC 216 was quite a wake-up call for a lot of people. 3 champions lost their belts, man, and when you're a world champion one day and then the next day you're not, your life changes. And now you got, Max Holloway defending on Saturday. So I figured let's get in the mindset of an actual world champion and see, what this week is like for those fighters that are in the biggest fights out there.
Yeah, a lot of people look at Tyron Woodley And they feel like it's a name that just came lately, but it really hasn't. He's been around for a while. He's been doing this for a long time. And I think all he wants
Yeah.
to do is just make up for lost time and get paid.
Yeah, man. I actually, given a lot of criticism toward Tyron Woodley's run with this, his fight run and how they went in the last year. But I've actually gained some of the most respect. My respect for him has even increased. I always respect the fighters, of course, but I'm talking about as a person and just kind of his intelligence. Listening to him as on the analyst desk or in interviews, you could tell that work with Den Thomas really pays off because he's a student of the game himself now. I mean, I could see Woodley just being an analyst or a coach even if he wanted to. If he wanted to go that route, he's a really talented dude.
Let's take a break. This is the first break of the second hour. When we come back, we'll talk to Tyron Woodley, UFC welterweight champion, excuse me. MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. We'll be right back.
They pat down TSA agents because they don't know where those people have been, and because they can. They are Gorgeous George and Goes, and this is MMA Junkie Radio.
All right, folks, we're back. It's MMA Junkie Radio, live from the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino inside the sportsbook. Stop by and pay us a visit if you're ever in town. We'd love to have you chill and hang out with us while we broadcast our show. All right, our next guest is the UFC welterweight champion. He's defended his belt 3 times. He's been champion for 475 days. His name is Tyron Woodley. He's also a Division I All-American, much like Ben Askren, who we were talking about earlier before the break. He joins us now on MMA Junkie Radio. What's up, T. Wood? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing great. This is a exciting week because it's a UFC fight week and a champion's going to defend, and it's on the heels of UFC 216. But I wanted to ask a champion, someone who's at the top, much like the 3 that lost their title at UFC 216, and much like the gentleman who's going to be defending, 217, and much like the gentleman that's going to be defending on 2018, what's the champion's mindset on fight week? What do you think about and obsess about the most right about this time, Tuesday before Saturday?
It's just really staying focused on the task in hand, knowing that all the work is done. You already put in the time. You got the greatest coaches in the world behind you. And really, at that point, it's just exercising your free will. So, fight week, that's what I'm thinking about.
What do you think happened at UFC 217? Every case was different. Garbrandt, I guess, had he was fired up. I mean, there was, deep hatred towards TJ Dillashaw. Joanna just thought she was greater than the whole division, maybe the all-time greatest female athlete out there. And, of course, Michael Bisping, he was worried about what everyone has ever thought about his reign, and GSP's coming off 4 years. So every case was different, but either way, a champion lost. As you were sitting there soaking all this in, was it just a reminder of how quick it can all be taken away?
Yeah, it's always a reminder. I'm always conscious that, at any point you can have a bad night at the office, or somebody could just happen to be better than you, and that's also a case as well. I see what you're taking it at. A lot of people talking mad crap, they was really, confident and going into this stuff, a little bit arrogant. But in this sport, you guys love that. The fans want to see it. They want to see the trash talking. So it's kind of hard not to do that because you can't just be a fighter anymore. You have to be an entertainer. You have to build a fight, sell the fight. So when you're doing that, sometimes you get caught up into the character. You get caught up into the mode. Because at the end of the day, when the fight's over with and somebody's hands get raised, everybody's hugging and patting each other backs and pounding anyway. So it's just a part of the fight game. It's an unfortunate shift towards entertainment and away from the sport. I think the reason why these guys lost is because the people that won were the fighters that were a little bit more loose. The fighters that were uptight, the really strong stances, and really, not really kind of flowing. If you would see the way that Dillashaw stance in position was, you see the way that Thug Rose, the calm, the composures, throwing more of the whipping punches that you don't see coming versus a super uptight, flexing stance. I think the same thing with Michael Bisping, George St. Pierre, and they both started fighting very uptight. And when George started to relax a little bit and start to get off, then that's when he had his opportunities. But at the end of the day, everybody's a world-class athlete. You can't take anybody lightly. I'm not saying they did. I'm pretty sure they had amazing camps, amazing training, situations. They were prepared, but you can lose. It ain't other sports where you're just going to not ever get in the face of adversity. But I can say I like the way that Cody Garbrandt has responded. I saw he was in the gym yesterday. I talked to Joanna. And, Bisping, I don't know if he responded the right way. He went on and took a harder matchup. Kelvin Gastelum, for his fight style, is a harder matchup than the 4 years off George St. Pierre. And, you see the results of that.
T. Wood, how much would your life change if you were no longer the champ? Have you ever thought about that? Like everything that's come your way, you're an actor, stuntman, podcast host, you're doing TMZ. And look, a lot of that came even before you were a champion, but obviously a lot of that's enhanced by the fact that, hey, we got the champ here. This is the champ hosting. You know what I mean? So
crazy,
have you thought about that?
It's crazy, and people don't realize it. The fans want to see you. I'm not against taking risks. I don't fight not to lose. I fight to win. And I'm just a fighter that's going out there and I'm finding opportunities. When you get the highest level, think about how closely T.J. Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt's matchup. How razor thin those exchanges was. One person got dropped. Had Cody had 10, 15 more seconds, he might have had the stoppage in the first round. Think of how the teeter-tottering, fight can go. And, when you're taking those risks, yeah, it's okay to take risks. It's okay to bomb and scratch the line in the middle of the octagon and get after it. But also when you're fighting the specialists and these strategists, and look how, Stephen Thompson looked against the current interim champion, Robert Whittaker, how he looked against a former champion, Johnny Hendricks, former title contender, Roy McDonald, future hopeful Jorge Masvidal. None of those guys were able to have a chance against him. And it's not as easy as people think and look for me to go out there and do what I've been able to do. Same thing with Damian Maia. He was bloodying up such and such in his last fight. And, he's taking down his last 12 opponents before me. And these guys are all off of 7-fight win streaks. 7-fight win streak for Steven, 7-fight win streak for Damian Maia. And you look at Robbie Lawler, fighter of the year 2 years back-to-back. Some of the most bloodiest, gruelingest fights ever. He didn't land one punch. So I do respect that. I do take everybody seriously. I do respect all my opponents. And I come in there knowing that, hey, life is different without this belt. My check is going to be, a fourth of what it is now without this belt. And also the opportunities and the platform, that I'll have is going to be a lot different without this belt. So I'm not trying to protect the belt. I'm just going out there and doing my due diligence, put myself in position to reign over this division for a very long time.
You're an elite company because B.J. Penn, Frankie Edgar, Benson Henderson, Henan Barao, Chris Weidman also had 3 title defenses like yourself. The next group that you can match is Liddell, Miletich, and Shamrock. I mean, we're talking legends of the game, but I still feel like you don't get the respect like some of these other athletes got. Why do you feel the same, and why is that?
It's a different set of rules for me. It's always been that way. Since I won the belt, and since I, basically started calling out Nick Diaz and George St. Pierre, it was okay for Cody Garbrandt to start calling out DJ and Conor McGregor. It was okay for, Michael Bisping to win the belt, stepping in last minute against Luke Rockhold, who owned him the first time, for him to start calling the shots and fighting a Dan Henderson not in his prime. And, it was okay for him to fight George St. Pierre the next fight. But when it's me, guys like Dillashaw just got his belt back. He can start talking about going down in weights and stuff like that. But when I mention it, you need to fight more contenders. You don't deserve a money fight yet. And then I rattle off 3 title defenses, and now, you fighting a boring style. And I'm fighting guys like legit tore my freaking labrum in the first round. I don't know if you guys know what a torn labrum feels like, but I still had the mental toughness to get through the fight, win the fight convincingly, and didn't even get bloody. Didn't even lose a round. So if that ain't mental toughness, I don't know what to tell you people.
Where can you update us on that injury? Where are you with that?
I was actually, Nate Diaz's fight was offered to me, and I accepted that fight December 30th, and I was excited about fighting him. It takes me to knock off a guy like that. I knocked off Carlos Condit. I knocked off Koscheck. I knocked off Robbie Lawler, Paul Daly, and I still never got that respect. And I still, when you say those guys' names, it put them in a certain category. Even though I've defeated those guys and I'm the champion of the world, in the toughest division in the world, my name still don't belong in that category yet. And I'm okay with that. So what do I have to do? I got to try to fight a Bisping. I got to try to fight a George St. Pierre, a Nick or Nate Diaz, a Conor McGregor, because that's the only way you can catapult yourself. You got to have that rivalry, that shit-talking press offers. I've never had that before. Imagine me talking crap to Maya or Stephen Thompson or Robbie Lawler, who doesn't even really talk at all in press conferences. Our sport is really revolved into that. So, of course I want to fight these guys. And plus, it's for your legacy. If I beat George St. Pierre, I'm the greatest welterweight of all time. You know what I mean? So, my path has been pretty clear, man. I fought guys that either have fought for titles before, former champions, former interim champions, or former title challengers, and that's been my road to the top. Think about Robbie, think about Johnny, who I tried to fight, think about Koscheck, who I fought, think about Rory McDonald, think about Jake Shields. Those weren't all by the skies, and some of those matchups are not easy matchups. Still to this day, Rory McDonald will give me hell on earth. He's a very tough matchup for me. And I'm man enough to be honest and say that. So I took the risk because I was supposed to fight for a title had I won it. And, I'm just a fighter that's willing to be honest and willing to go out there and fight and be a professional. And it doesn't get respected. Guys are missing weight, guys are taking PEDs, and the person that's sitting there doing it all by himself, promoting himself, You know what I mean? Doing all these outside things outside the octagon. How do I not get the same shake?
I can't explain it. I don't know. I want to say, I mean, what a lot of people don't want to say. I think it's because you're an African American, you're a black athlete. A lot of people just aren't comfortable with that in our sport. Like John Jones has some popularity, but DC doesn't. Demetrius Johnson has some popularity, but you don't.
Get promoted like that. Like if you really knew, like we got the same manager. If you really knew what happened behind the scenes, every chance John gets thrown on the bus. Like be for real. Like think about the whole Brock Lesnar and John Jones situation the same week. And John gets flagged, can't fight, can't make his millions of dollars, but Brock can do it, and then goes carry himself back off to the WWE. Like he's promoted that way because you have to. He was undeniable, probably the greatest talent we've ever seen. He was beating legends in their prime. Not he wasn't beating a washed up, a guy that's been in the game for a long time. He's beating these guys in the prime, so you couldn't help but promote him. The sport needed him.
Well, you're right. In the last few years, it definitely has not been. He's not been one of their favorites. But early on, I mean, he got, the title shot versus Shogun. I don't even know if he was the right guy at the time, but it seemed like they were really behind him, and they haven't been. So I see your point there. But going back to, you said you were ready to go on December 30th if it was Nate Diaz. Is it because the matchup wouldn't affect the shoulder as much? Like, would you take another matchup?
100%, because it's more of a boxing match, and it's not a boxing match of power. And, I don't have to fear that he's going to hit me with some crazy KO punch that I've never seen come before. He's a boxer and jiu-jitsu player, but I'm a boxer as well, and I train with some of the best boxers in the world. I've been training there since 2008. I boxed world champion boxers. So I don't really feel intimidated by that skill set. And yes, he has great cardio, and he does Ironmans and marathons and triathlons and all this other crap. But guess what? It's 25 minutes. I don't give a hell who you are. In 25 minutes, you're not going to beat me. He don't get 10 rounds. Maybe in a 7 to 10 round fight, maybe he'll be able to endure because he's more of an aerobic athlete. But in a 25-minute fight, he'll never beat me. Robbie Lawler would never beat me. These are people they will not beat me. It's not in the makeup. I'm in their mind too much, and I possess too many intangibles that they can't deal with. He's not going to stop me from taking him down if I want to, which I don't have to. He's not going to submit me. Very easy to get to a half guard, a side mount, but there's no submissions that he can do from there. I'm not going to sit in a guard of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And plus, I don't think he has the strength and power to submit me, even if he wanted to. You saw what Carlos Condon did when he put me in a triangle choke. I stood up with him, and I flicked him off me like a booger. So if you think it's going to be easy, like no, I'm just annoyed with our sport. Right before I came on here, some guy I don't even know. I mean, I've never even met the guy before. Didn't know he was in a division. I want to fight everybody but Tyron because he does this and this. But look at my resume. Look what I've done. Look how many finishes I have. 11 finishes, 9 in the first round out of 18 fights. Some people don't want to be finished, people. How much did I try to finish Stephen Thompson? He just got a nugget on him. Dude wouldn't go away, And, it's just a frustrating part of the sport. So, yeah, to answer your question, very, very, very long-winded way of saying that. With his style matchup, I knew he wouldn't go for a shot, which is very hard. My shoulder popped out a couple more times in the fight when I was defending those shots from Maya. Also, a wrestler that's going to be kind of grabbing and a static exchange of wrestling and power and blocking. At any point, your shoulder can possibly slip out. But I feel really confident that for the state of my shoulder that it's in right now, that I can outbox him, and I can outkick him, and I can outwrestle him. And in 25 minutes, he won't. Conditioning and cardio won't come into play. He won't win the fight because I started getting a little bit tired because I have so much muscle, and he's such a cardio freak. No, that's not what happened. What happened when he fought Roy McDonald, or he fought Dong Young Kim, or he fought all these real welterweights? He got ragdolled.
By the way, I like how you kept it real with Gastelum. He had mentioned something, and you fired back about the fight that you guys had. And you said, hey, you had your chance against me, didn't work out, the same way you had your chance against Rory, and Rory whooped your butt. That raw honesty is what always has made me a fan.
You complain about that and make excuses? I had a phenomenal game plan for Rory. I was in amazing shape. I didn't execute. So guess what? I got to live with that. I can't go on and say, I didn't make weight. You didn't make weight because your butt is undisciplined. It wasn't he didn't have no damn he didn't have nothing that prevented him from making weight. So oldest trick in the book. You act like you ain't gonna make weight. You go to the hospital. They're gonna say, "Oh, you dehydrated. You need an IV." A heavyweight's gonna be dehydrated fight week. So, like I don't want to hear that. Like he was 181 pounds when he got on the scale. He had to cut less weight. He should have felt better. He didn't lose that fight he lost the fight because he couldn't get to me. His coaches was yelling, "No, no, 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 no!" Every time I went to the cage, they was terrified I was gonna knock him out like I did Koscheck. I made him miss. I countered him well. He couldn't get a punch out from me. I was talking to him in there. I'm satisfied with that performance. I mean, do I have to? I told him, I said, I don't want to knock him out because you guys think this young, spunky guy is going to beat me because he got a bigger gas tank. And guess what? He was the one that was in there huffing and puffing, and I was in the clinch, and I was breathing easy. So, it is what it is, man. I'm on the same path. I've always been on the same path. I'm going to be the greatest welterweight of all time. And, it's going to come a point when you look around and you're trying to force feed us all these stars, people that are filling us, not showing up, not making weight, not fighting clean. And then you're like, damn, this dude been here the whole time, doing it the old school way, whooping everybody's butt. Maybe we should promote this guy the right way.
Tyron Woodley, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. He is the UFC welterweight champion with one more title defense. He'll join Frank Shamrock, Pat Miletich, and Chuck Liddell with 4 title defenses. So slowly climbing up the all-time great ranks. He's also the host of The Morning Wood with D's Nuts. Check that out on iTunes. Give them a review. Give them a follow. I got to send it over to the boys at the Mandalay Bay. Goes and Dan, what do you have for the champ?
Tyron, they offer you the fight with Nate Diaz, and then we see him throw out the number of 15 million. When you saw that number, did that seem like a number that could be done, or did it seem like more like he was just trying to price himself out?
It seems like him saying no without saying no. It seems like him saying I don't want to fight him without saying I don't want to fight him. It seems like he was saying I'm scared, homie, without saying I'm scared, homie. He's never made 15 million to fight. Like let's all do recycle and go backwards. He was fighting for 16,000 and 16,000. I don't know if he has amnesia, but before he fought for Conor McGregor, he beat Michael Johnson for 16,000 and 16,000. After 2 fights with Conor, you think you're gonna make 15 million to fight me? I'm not even Conor. He's not gonna make that to fight Conor. So for him to throw that number out, that's like me saying, "Yeah, I'll fight Stipe Miocic right now. Yep, sign me up. Yep, I'll fight him. How much you need? 30 million. I know I'm not gonna get 30 million." So basically, I'm puffing my chest out, acting like, because he don't want to lose that credibility with the fans. He don't want to lose that. I'll fight anybody, anytime. I'm a Stockton. I'm from the hood. Da da da. But then you got to really defend that. You got to really defend that statement. He don't want to have to defend that, so he's trying to preserve his fans that really regard him and see him in that light.
If Dana White pulled you aside and said, "Tyron, what is the best case scenario for you? How can we make you happy?" What would be that opponent and that date?
You know what? At this point, I'm gonna actually go and have the surgery done on my shoulder. It's gonna take me a little bit of time to get back. And when I do that, I'm gonna shoot for like maybe March, April. I hear Conor might be trying to fight in March, and I guess he runs the show now. He tells everybody what to do. And from what I hear, if he is on the card, he doesn't want any pay-per-view grossing fighters on the card with him because he don't want to feed us anymore, which I can respect. So the dude is the draw, man. We can say what we want. We can say all you want, but he is the draw. He's that dude right now. So probably March, April, May at latest. I like to get 3 fights in a year. That's why it's so important for me to finish out this year, December 30th. And I feel like Nate Diaz took that from me. He's not undefeated. It's not like he didn't lose his last fight. So for you to be able to fight for a world title, make millions of dollars to fight me after you took a loss, jump in the line, man, I feel like it's kind of took that from me.
Tyron, I just have a hypothetical, but this hypothetical could actually be more real than a possible, any of the possible things we're talking about. It's a 2-part hypothetical question. One is the talk of new divisions, 65, 75, 85, kind of revamping that. Now, if that were to happen, welterweight would be the one affected, meaning the champion, being you, would be the one who would probably be most affected if they were to implement that change. So part one of that question is, A, what would you feel about that? And part two, if they came to you and said, Tyron, now since this, hypothetical takes your division away, we're going to close out the welterweight division the way it should be, you versus GSP. Is that a fair trade-off for you? And once this happened, what division would you go to if this were to happen? Would you be more of a...
That's always been a thing. That's always been my fight. That's always been my number one fight since day one. It's always been my fight. It hasn't been his fight. It's been his least favorite fight because he wonder why does Tyron want to fight me so much? He always sees me, talks to me, and nice to me, and then he gets on the microphone and want to fight me. I've never not liked George St. Pierre. I've never not been a fan of his work. He is the greatest welterweight of all time. But why wouldn't I want to fight him? If I want to be the greatest welterweight of all time, I was willing to go up to middleweight to fight him. That fight was never put on the table. If you guys really think that after I beat Damian Maia, I was going to fight George, Dana said, hey, the winner of this fight fights George. You know what that meant? If Damian Maia won, he fought George. You know why? Because it's not that tough of a matchup for George. If Stephen Thompson would have beat me, George probably would have been confident he could have took Stephen Thompson down ground and pound him. You know what I mean? Like, hey, he'd rather fight Robert Whittaker than me. It ain't no secret on what's going on. It ain't no mystery, no conspiracy theory. It's just facts that's right in our face. I always wanted to fight with George. George knows that I'm too much for him. I'm a better wrestler than him. I got the highest takedown defense in UFC history, which should trump his highest takedown, whatever stat he has on most takedowns or whatever the heck. I punch way harder. He had a problem with concussions when he left the sport, and I'm faster than him. I mean, that adds up for a lot. I don't even need to wrestle George. I'm going to be better on the feet. I'm going to punch him way harder. I'm going to make him want to try to desperately take me down, and he's going to have to pay.
Tyron, the last thing I wanted to ask you is, Aldo did not like Conor McGregor, but McGregor made him a lot of money, and Silva didn't like Chael Sonnen, but Chael Sonnen made him a lot of money. So even though I know you have a dislike for the way Colby Covington has approached the possible title fight, could it be that you may be overlooking what could be a huge fight at the box office and could put some money in your pocket versus Lawler or RDA that they don't talk as much, and a lot of people don't get excited for RDA matches.
We don't have the resume. Colby has beaten guys that I tenderized for him. I wrote the book on Damian Maia, and he even ruined that. He went up there and let the dude piece him up a couple times. Yeah, he went in there and did some ugly striking and bloodied him up. But what is Damian Maia's motivation right now? He's already had 2 title runs, came up short. He knows he's not going to get another title shot when I'm in the seat. Why is he even really fighting at this point? Colby Covington was a Fight Pass phenom. Believe that. Is this his first fight on actual Fox? Not pay-per-view, Fox. He was fighting on Fight Pass in Asia. He had 5,000 followers into that fight, and he got 8,000, probably the other 3, the people that want to take his head off for disrespecting the country. He don't have the resume. He got 1 knockout to his name. He was submitted by Eddie Alves Warlass, whatever the hell his name is. All my losses to guys that are former champions or title contenders in this league or other leagues. So what are we comparing here? What has he done? Like, why should he be in a position to fight me?
I was just going along the ways of when there's heat in fights, a lot of times the fans just are into that. You know what I mean?
It was heat in George St. Pierre and Bisbee fight. Dude, look at the pay-per-view numbers. And we're talking about one of the greatest welterweight of all time and a future Hall of Famer in Bisbee. The numbers aren't the same anymore. This kid don't have the draw. Most people that are watching or listening, we're bored. We don't have nothing in our sport that's interesting right now. So by default, we're listening to this moron. That's what we're doing. And we're really going to act like his fake WWE, like he makes WWE look bad. Like, at least be like Conor. At least be like Bisbee. At least be like, Chael Sonnen, that it was witty. It had some charisma to it. It made sense. But when it's completely corny and it's not even believable, it just makes you look stupid. And it makes our sport look stupid. And it makes the toughest division in the world, which is welterweight, look stupid. So guess what? I told him. I said, man, if that's what you feel like you need to do, brother, go ahead, have at it, do what you need to do. I'm just not going to give you the, the stage. I'm just not going to boost you up. I'm out here grinding. I built my name up. I fought the legends. I fought the people. I earned my key. And young fighters that are listening to this, they need to realize This ain't instant oatmeal. Everybody want to sit on the couch and get up and be a world champion. He was like that when he was training. His whole life savings that he had to his name was from training camp money. I was paying him $500 a week. How slowly do people forget that? Like, you forget that when that's all the money you had to your name, and all of a sudden now you this tough fighter, and this is. I'm like, dude, like, you the easiest matchup for me. It's not even. It's not even a question. Like, think about guys like Darren Till. Think about guys like Carl Usman. Why he don't want to fight them? Them some straight up matchups. Them people that I'm watching. That, hey, it's inevitable that Carl Usman's going to come up to this point, and I'm going to have to see him. I'm going to have to see Darren Till. I thought it was going to be Jorge Masvidal, but came short in a couple fights. Couldn't get to that bump. I thought it was going to be Cowboy Cerrone. Came up short. It's our sport. Styles makes fights. But there's a couple people that I can see I'm going to have to send across the octagon. He ain't that guy.
Tyron Woodley, folks, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. Catch him on TMZ Sports. He's got his podcast, The Morning Wood with D's Nuts. You can see him on Fox working the desk. He's everywhere. Tyron, I know you're a busy guy. Thanks for making some time with us and letting us do a catch-up. We addressed a lot of things. At this point, it looks like possible surgery and maybe spring of 2018. So I hope all that goes well for you. There's no setbacks and you have a healthy recovery.
Thank you, my man. Appreciate you guys.
All right, thank you. All right, folks, that's the champ, Tyron Woodley. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk to Mark Henry, the head coach for Eddie Alvarez. And, of course, they'll be in Detroit on Saturday. In fact, I think they're already there, as they take on Justin Gaethje in what many are calling the fans' fight of the night. And that's saying a lot because we got Holloway versus Aldo in a title defense. We got Overeem and Ngannou. Holy cow, two massive superstars there. And, of course, another fight that's getting overlooked, Pettis versus Cejudo. That could produce a possible number one contender in the flyweight division. We'll be right back. We'll tackle all that when we come back. We'll talk to Mr. Henry. When we come back, it's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Rush 93.
You know that scene in Star Wars where Darth Vader tells Luke he's his father? What if I walked in right after with my voice and was like, I'm your Uncle Walter. Can I get a lift home? That'd be crazy, right? Anyway, here are George and Goes.
That would be crazy, Rock. Oh, show. I love Rock, man. These rejoins that Goes and Danny have put together over the years. The guys nailed it. I think we need to come up with a new batch, though. Dan Tom's joined the team, and plus I think on one of them I'm just called Gorgeous and Goes, or we're called Gorgeous and Goes. So, Goes, you got some new ones cooking or what?
I do have some. You know, when we first did these,
Alright.
we have like the option of 6 different people to go with, and
yeah?
but Rock is just so funny and unique that we've always just kept him.
Yeah, I like Rock.
Yeah.
And by the way, folks, here's a good cause. Help SiriusXM in the fight to end hunger. Support Why Hunger's annual Hungerthon by visiting SiriusXM.com/Hungerthon to bid on items like the opportunity to spend a day at an NFL training camp with SiriusXM NFL Radio. That would be legit.
Hell yeah.
I'd be a big fan of that one. All right, you can also make a donation and receive a free gift like Bruce Springsteen, Land of Hope and Dreams t-shirt and more. Yeah, my Niners may be 1-9 or whatever the fuck we are, but I'd love to visit their training camp, and if I get to go with the SiriusXM NFL team, that'd be great. All right, we made a couple attempts at Mark Henry. We're not connecting here, so we may have to push this off till tomorrow. And don't forget, tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. start time on the Eastern Standard Time zone. Pacific time, it'll be 8:30 a.m. So it'll be early, and we'll do some reminders via social media and, of course, the preview. But I figured I would tell you guys right now what the deal is. However, Danny's telling us... Oh, okay, sorry. Danny's telling us we have a call. I thought we had Mark Henry. But we have Showtime from Tennessee. We'll close with him. Showtime, what's up, man? It's your time.
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
What up?
Not much, and you?
Man, just enjoying the show, like always. I was kind of confused. So, are you guys going to do the show from the base, or we going to only have you guys tomorrow, and then you'll be done for the rest of the week?
Just tomorrow. If Goes was going and I wasn't, Dan, Tom, and I would do the show. If I was going and Goes wasn't, Goes and Dan, Tom could hang back and do the show. In fact, you may get a version of that as we close the year, just as we're juggling vacation days. But I don't believe Dan is ready for 2 hours yet. I don't know. He may disagree, but it's long to do it on your own. He'd, of course, have Danny as a sidekick, but we didn't think that far ahead, and we had some days that we needed to address anyway. So to answer your question, no, it won't be from the base. And I don't know, Dan, you think you could ever pull it off on your own with Danny as your sidekick?
I'm confident on the Protect Your Neck podcast, my podcast, which y'all can listen to. I actually go near that. I have to stop myself because I talk too damn much. But I won't. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of fights this weekend to get ahead on, so I'll be making use of that extra time. So no complaints here. But I'm here for you and Junkie Nation whenever y'all need.
I've had a preview of the
right.
Dan and Danny show before. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, we'll have to put him to the task, right, Goes?
I have to be
Monday
careful.
We'll start the show, and then you and I will go take a little walk to Starbucks and come back 15 minutes later, and our junkie friends will text us, "Hey, get back in there! They fucking suck balls." Or they may say, "Don't ever come back. It's all about Dan and Danny from here on out. Start your own show."
I gotta be careful what I wish
Silence
for.
of the Lambs song would probably be their intro.
Yeah, jeez.
All right, well, Showtime, did you like the Woodley interview? We spent some time with him, at least.
Oh, yeah, I loved it, and I loved him addressing Kobe as well. Loved it.
All right, bud. Well, yeah, call in tomorrow. We have a different start time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We'll be doing a little bit of the breakdown show, and might have a guest or two. We'll probably have to reroute Mark Henry to that show, but call in and we'll talk some more. All right, bud?
We got.
Okay, guys.
All
right, big thanks to Brett Johns and Tyron Woodley. Excuse me?
We might have a special guest on hold in the messenger here I'm looking at.
Then we'll be right back with some overtime.
There we go.
It's crashing almost holds down the drain. Fever, Las Vegas turning day into nighttime, turning night into daytime. If you see it once, you'll never be the same again. I'm gonna keep on the run. I'm gonna have me some fun. It cost me my very last dime. If I wind
All right, you guys clear for overtime.
Woohoo! Danny pulled it off, our producer. All right, folks. Sorry about that exit there. The SiriusXM audience, they have gone on to other sports, combat sports and entertainment. We'll keep going here with the overtime with one of the best coaches in the game. It's Mark Henry. He'll be in the corner of Eddie Alvarez at UFC 218. What's up, Coach? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Sorry I messed up my times. I thought I was free. So sorry, man. I don't like to mess you guys up. Really apologize.
No worries. No worries. We got you here. We have the flexibility to do a little bit of OT. But first of all, even before we get into just, Detroit and the big fight versus Gagey, I really enjoyed watching you work with the females there on Tough 26, for these last few weeks that I've been watching the reality show.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, we have, in fact, a couple that could be fighting Friday. I'll be flying over to that also. We have two girls on our team. I think Deanna, in fact, was just announced. I think I saw it on Twitter today.
Yeah, she
was.
So
Deanna Bennett really pumped for her fighting, and Sarge, you don't know what's going to happen to her. She could be on the undercard. She could be fighting for Invicta or maybe for the title. So we'll see what happens Wednesday.
So you're coming to Vegas first and then going to Detroit?
I'm going to Detroit tomorrow to start up with Eddie. And, it's a shame Frankie was supposed to be on that card. Really bummed about that. And then going back to, leaving back to Vegas and then come back to Detroit again. So going to Detroit, get a couple days in with Eddie, then going to Vegas. Detroit to come back.
How is it for you? You've been in so many world title fights, and obviously that's the highest of highs. Whether it's Moraes at WSOF, Eddie Alvarez in the UFC, Frankie Edgar in the UFC, some big name fights. But then at the same time, I'm watching you hold the pads, and you're giving those same instructions, to raw talents like the young ladies on the reality show. It just seems like it doesn't matter what the stakes are, as long as someone's willing to learn, you're willing to teach, and you're having just as much fun.
Yeah, man, just love that people that have that white belt mentality and their eyes are wide open. That's pretty much Frankie, man. Frankie's been 12 years, and guys like Eddie, man. Eddie's he's been so lit up to train lately, and we just have a new guy who's totally on fire, too. Just cornered last weekend.
Magomed Shapiro?
Yeah, I was just in his corner, man. He's looking incredible. So, and our guy Muslim fell a little short. We have another guy, too, big-time up-and-comer, too, man. We've been training for over a year. This kid Ramazan, man, who fought in ACB, I think the 6th or 7th fight. He won also, did an amazing job. So, really proud of the guys last weekend and pumped up for the girls Friday and really pumped up for Eddie, man.
And I watched
and then
Eddie.
We got Marlon again next week. They're Marlon him so
in
proud of him coming right back. Yep. Against Sterling, yeah.
Eddie was throwing out, code names for a lot of the combos or a lot of the strategy. Does that come? Does he borrow or use a lot of your terminology?
Yeah, well, some of them he messed up and did. There were some guys, and so we had we're always switching. Every camp we're flipping codes and stuff. Like could be somebody's. A lot of them it's their family name. So you know what I'm saying. So it's their family names, or their dog, or stuff like that. So then we'll just flip them. In every camp too, it's trying to do a new, like basic 1 to 6, and striking is the same. So we'll try to flip around. I've done Japan, done I think Yiddish, done Korean, done Portuguese, done Russian. So every camp we flip up and just mix up the different names for combos and the different codes and stuff. Because if you hear too much on when you're watching, the last person's fight, you got to flip them up.
Is all this written down like on a playbook, or would that be dangerous in case someone left the team or someone got their hands on the playbook?
No, it's just everybody's is different. So it doesn't matter. Everybody's is different from fight to fight. Like everybody has. I go pretty much off stuff that will click with them. So I use their family, like their family members that they'll remember quick, or one of their coaches, or a relative, or their dog, or whatever. So since each person has their own family members, nobody's codes are really the same.
Mark Henry's our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. He'll be cornering Eddie Alvarez at UFC 218. He also works with Marlon Moraes, Corey Anderson, Frankie Edgar. The list goes on, and he's also featured on this season of The Ultimate Fighter on Team Alvarez. All right, let me send it over to the boys at the Mandalay Bay. Goes and Dan, what do you have for Mark Henry?
Mark, what would you say, as far as when we break down this fight, the one thing that we say for Eddie Alvarez is we don't want him to get wrapped up in Justin's game. It seems like Justin has this knack of getting guys that just, they come in with a game plan, and next thing you know, they're just exchanging like madmen. Is that something that was a big focus in the training camp and just trying to get Eddie to calm down?
That's something that's a big focus, but I don't think it's happening with me controlling it this time. It's in fact, Eddie told me to hang out with his wife. I mean, I'll definitely be in the corner, but Eddie told me to hang out with his wife and watch the fight for this one. So this one is a very toxic one. And both these guys have dynamite in their hands. They both have such a tremendous heart. Man, it's going to be a wild one. But yeah, that's definitely a concern. And I don't even, it's like a wild stallion, man. I just don't know if I would even get on the back of Eddie to try and tame him for this fight, because I think it's going to be pretty crazy.
How different is this fight with having, a month and a half of seeing Justin Gaethje just about every day, and those two seem pretty friendly, It didn't seem like they hated each other or anything like that. How different is the dynamic for this fight?
Yeah, it's a little. I mean, Justin came to help out Frankie a while ago, and we've had some guys come down to help out different guys in our camp. But man, everybody loved Justin, including myself. Like, we all fell in love with him, man. He's such a great kid. And Ali, Al Deviz's manager, and we're really close to it. So I bump into Justin all the time because I'll be at Ali's house and he'll be there, stuff like that. So. We're very familiar with Justin. He's a great dude, man. Our team, loves the kid, but, for this fight, he's the enemy for 15 minutes, or I'm sure less.
Mark, Goz is talking about, game plans and Eddie's approach to this fight, but in general, as a coach, how much, I mean, obviously you can't, nor do you probably want to control your fighter completely, but how much do you maybe step in on the game plan when you feel strongly about something, or maybe when you don't feel as strongly about something?
Well, I think that, just so as a coach, you want to try to do the best that you can, and for me, it's getting all the data that I possibly can. So it's, how do I get that? Watch their fights and just go through, what they've done. Some fighters don't like to, have too much data. They don't like to know too much about their opponent. They want to do what they want to do. So, each fighter is definitely different in the fact that, they want to worry about themselves, and some want a little more information. So, you go with information, and if you feel like they're not feeling it, then you back off a little bit, And I think Eddie won this fight. So, but everybody's there. Like Frankie, I send Frankie tiny little clips of things I want to show him to his phone, because he will not sit and watch sparring. No way, no how. So, so I'll just take, I'll make 10-second clips and send him a ton of them, and whatever we're going over, he reacts to that a lot better, because he won't sit down and watch tape. Even his own sparring. I can sit down with guys sparring. Guys love to watch their own sparring. But Frankie, I could maybe get him to watch, if he did 5-6 rounds one day, I could get him to watch a round and a half, I'm lucky, before we start training, to go over the day sparring or the day before sparring.
It's great that you mentioned Frankie. I mean, as someone who watches a lot of tape, first of all, I can sentiment your talk about codes and cornering, and even looking at a lot of numbers. I'm so impressed with Frankie more than anybody else, because you can look at his strikes per round and see 50, 51, 55, 52, and really you can see your work that you guys talk about really showing through in the fight. So, congrats on that, first of all. But I guess my last question for me here is that, it's hard to get fighters to watch tape, and obviously you do a lot. That's part of your, not just being a great coach, but being, a good prepper is part of your strength. Is time management hard, because you run a pizza shop, all these world-class fighters, you're traveling with this crazy UFC schedule? What's time management like for Mark Henry right now?
Yeah, it's on a 5-minute swing, my friend. That's what it is. Like right now, I'm at a Restaurant Depot in my car, not loading it, that I need to load because I have to go. I just bought a a building for a new pizzeria that I need to be at the bank to sign stuff. Then I got to hook up with Frankie. Yeah, Frankie later, then Marlon Wyatt. So, and still, I got to try and get on. Watch a little more of Mr. Khabib for getting ready for Edson's fight also that we have in a little bit.
So, Mark, we'll close with this. I just want to ask you one last question, then we'll let you go. Thanks for the time, by the way. When your fight's over with Alvarez and Gaethje, obviously, you're hoping for the best. But one of the fights that's going to be coming up next is going to be Holloway versus Aldo. Do you go back to your seat and watch it as a fan, or will you be watching it as a scout for the future Edgar fight? I'm sure he'll be next for Holloway if he retains, and I don't know what the situation will be with Aldo, but how will you be looking at that fight?
I'll be looking at it as Team Holloway all day. It's also Holloway's also. I mean, I like both of them, but Holloway is definitely. I respect both of them immensely, but I really love the type of guy Holloway is, man. Such a respectful kid. We bumped into him, before, and I just love the fact that this kid always wants to fight. They were kind of giving him a little while to get to the title, and he said, just give me another one. So I love that he always wants to fight. I love that, I'm a Christian too, so I love that he's, spreading, gospel too about Christ and stuff, so I'm totally all over that. And, just totally likable kid, so it's easy to root for him, and plus, I think that's a better, segue for Frankie to fight for the title also. And I'd love to see that fight. Frankie and him have never fought, and, that's what I love about Max too. Max said, right away he wanted it, and, said one day put another champ under his belt or whatnot, and Frankie is always looking for, the best challenges, and Max is one challenge that he's never had, and, we were really excited for the fight. It's a shame because Frankie was looking amazing, man. I mean, we started our camp kind of late this time too, because we always kind of start a little too early, and near the end, we had peak maybe just a tad bit too early, so we started a little bit late. He was really coming on peaking, and we figured, we thought we had the right formula this time, waiting a little bit, and it's a shame because man, he was looking really good.
Coach, thanks for the time. Safe flights to Detroit and Vegas and back to Detroit. I hope things work out for you and your fighters, and we really appreciate the time as always on MMA Junkie Radio.
Thanks so much, guys. And sorry for messing up, man. I really didn't mean to. I thought I was on like a late time. Sorry about that, man.
No problem, Coach. I'm glad we got you.
All right, man. God bless, man. Have a great fight weekend, man.
All right. We'll see you. Take care.
Yep. Take it easy, guys.
All right, folks. That's our show for today. A little bit of OT there for you. Thanks for Danny Otto for making that happen. And we are out of here tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. start time on Facebook and YouTube, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. Either way, the podcast will be uploaded. You'll get your full 2 hours. And then, of course, we'll be off on Thursday and Friday. So thank you to Mark Henry, Tyron Woodley, and Brett Johns, who came to the studio earlier. That was a ton of fun. That almost feels like it was yesterday.
Yeah, it does.
What a long show, but it was a great show.
Definitely.
All right, so for the two Dans and Goes, I'm George. Have a nice day. Go out there and beat champions and go, Man U, even though we can't see the motherfuckers.